Back before the internet, which some would call the dark times, you had limited options for information when it came to choosing a new video game. Video game magazines were a valuable source of info if you had the bucks for a subscription. But let's face it, things like Nintendo Power made every game look fun. You could try a game at an in-store display, but those were usually limited to major releases. Word of mouth was always huge, and getting a title that a friend recommends could ensure that you got a quality game. But renting a game or trying it yourself was the ultimate test. Now this is where it got slightly complicated. Whether you rented or were buying, walking into a store with a wall of games to choose from is overwhelming. So how did we decide? By looking at the box, of course. But in hindsight, this is a bad way to pick out a game, because great games can have terrible box art. You're probably aware of those notoriously trash boxes like Anticipation, Black Belt, and Legacy of Kain. But there are times where crappy art does injustice to good games. One of my favorite games for the NES has some extremely puzzling cover art, Star Tropics. It's a fantastic action-adventure game, and I think it's far superior to the NES Zelda game. But just look at the cover! It's a bunch of trees! What kid wants to play that? Coupled with its name, and you'd have no clue what it's about if you've never played it. Now check out the sequel's art. A cool-looking villain with claws, and it's named Zoda's Revenge. You might not know who that is, but vengeance, dude! That's serious stuff! The cover needed to draw you in, make you want to play the game. So when something like Phalanx has a cover like this, it's a real head-scratcher. You want people to play your space shooter game, so you stick an old man with a banjo on the cover? Why? The game is pretty good too, but I'm sure that cover drove customers away. And I'm willing to bet that people who wanted an old man banjo game were upset by the false advertising. I know everyone gives the Mega Man 1 cover a lot of flack, but it's leaps and bounds more interesting than other NES boxes. Many of them were just a sprite from the game on a black box. So bland. Looking back at the Super Mario Bros. Cover, and I'm shocked at how bad it is. This in no way makes me want to play the game. I'm glad this game was packed in with the NES, because I'm sure the cover would have turned many people away from one of the most influential games of all time. Some of my favorite boxes that did justice to incredible games are Double Dragon 2, Castlevania, Contra 3, Super Smash Bros., Turtles in Time, all awesome covers for awesome games. But this works both ways. Just because a game has awesome art doesn't mean that it's going to be an outstanding game. As I mentioned earlier, the goal of box art should be to make you want to play the game, good or bad. Take Dinosaurs for Hire for the Genesis. That cover art is amazing! Jack dinos with guns blazing? Who in their right mind wouldn't want to play this? But truth be told, it's kinda meh. It's a mediocre run and gun where the look is way better than the gameplay. Shaq Fu has the big diesel front and center, and who can resist his charms? But I've said my piece on how awful this game is time and time again. RoboCop 3's cover looked like it would be a hell of a fun time. Robo on a jetpack smashing through a building, firing away at foes. What's not to love? Well, for one thing, it's so slow and monotonous that it makes me rather watch the atrocious movie instead. Or better yet, a third option for removing my eyeballs to get away from both. Nowadays, covers aren't as important, even though there are both examples of stunning and horrible box art. With the power of the internet, when you want to pick out a new game to play, you have plenty of information right at your fingertips. There are video reviews from handsome YouTubers, gameplay footage is often shown by the developer years prior to the game releasing, and in many cases you can download a demo to try before you buy. So my point is, make sure you research your game, because you should never judge a game by its cover.